Welcome back, everyone, to Let the Journey Begin. I'm your co-host, Hilary Roberts, and filling in for Jason Waller today is our executive director, Alex Messier.
All right, back in the saddle. Jason's on baby watch, so I am here.
Baby watch. Well,
news.
I'm a baby.
Baby watch. And that's why I'm here. But no, we have a lot of good things coming along. We've got a fun event with the Angels coming up. We closed out our golf tournament last month, which was a huge success. Thank you for everybody that came out to that. We were able to raise $23,000 to help people get into treatment, not to mention various in-kind treatment donations. So that was huge. Overall, huge success. We had the Red Bull guys skydiving in, carrying the flag, which was a cool tribute for Memorial Day. Hilary, I'm sure you had a ton of fun cruising around with Brandy and driving your golf cart all around the course.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, we were behind. we were part behind Ariel and Jana Woodbury, and it was just. We had a blast. We're like, thank you. La, la, la. We were like the Red Songbird cheerleaders.
Yeah. And it was funny because I know that there were some other golfers that weren't a part of our group that were intermingled in. And when we caught up to them, they were asking us to send the ladies back around. And for like, you mean the beverage cart? They're like, no, the two crazy ladies driving around in the golf cart. So y'all were definitely noticed and requested multiple times by the other golfers that weren't a part of our group. So.
Well, what was such an honor is to have, when you talked about people that were watching our presentation after the tournament and getting donation from that.
Oh, yeah. So
from people that weren't even part of the event.
Yeah. Cool little crazy thing that happened. So for our listeners here to explain what was going on, while Hilary was talking about the origin of the Red Songbird Foundation and why we were there and doing this event, we actually had a gentleman who was sitting at the bar. And mind you, he was having a cocktail after his golf round. And just by hearing Hilary's story, he contributed $500 just right then and there. And I mean, it's proof in the pudding that the message and the cause is definitely strong. But it was also cool to see people in the community actually being aware and acknowledging that there is a huge mental health and substance abuse problem. It's only getting worse. And he had the means and ability to actually contribute towards making a difference. So to the random stranger, thank you for that. We're definitely making great use of the funds. We closed out one scholarship last month. We have two scholarships this month. We have the Jason Davis Award as well as the Jana Woodbury Scholarship. And then we have, to the best of our knowledge, we don't want to pull too many wraps off the present yet, but I think we're going to be able to offer a scholarship till the end of the year, or once a month till the end of the year. So that's huge. And for those of you who know that these treatment scholarships are not cheap. It's about the equivalent of about $250,000 being able to go back into the community. So thank you all for your support and all our sponsors. Big thank you to Preston and Epic Journey for putting it on for us. And we can't wait to do it again.
And I do want to say, and I've been saying this lately just because I want people to know that I don't take one penny from the foundation. As a matter of fact, I give to the foundation. And I've given a lot, and I continue, and I will for each event that we have and everything that we do. But it's just, we really, really want to make a difference, and we want to be transparent. You can look us up. You can see exactly how it all goes out. And we just always want to be that foundation that's of integrity and transparency, that our mission is to help heal people from the darkness of their past, or sometimes it's of their present. So that's the deal. So do you want to introduce our guest today? Do you introduce our beautiful, beautiful guest today?
Yes, we have the lovely Breezy Nowlan, who is the founder of Taste Recovery. They are a platform for sober living. So if anybody's looking for sober living, definitely check out Taste Recovery. We'll put up her info on how to get a hold of her at the end of the show. But welcome, Breezy, to our show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you and very curious to hear about your story. And I'll let Hilary take us out.
So we have a very intense question for you. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Ooh. When I grew up, I think very, very early on, I wanted to be an actress. I was in plays And I also was doing singing lessons, and my parents were constantly putting me in competitions and stuff. And I realized very early on that I was terrified of being on stage, and I absolutely hated it, and I had horrible stage fright. And so after that, I kind of was like, well, that was it. My dreams are done. I don't know what to do now. And then there came alcohol.
Gotcha. And at what age did you figure out that acting or being on stage wasn't for you?
The stage fright probably started when I was in middle school. And then I went into drama. I took theater in high school. And pretty much every single time I got on stage, I forgot the words. I had a panic attack. I had to run off stage. And I was like, okay, I tried. I did my due diligence, and I think I'm good, So at that point, I decided to give it up. And that's when I was applying for colleges. And one of my friends was like, hey, you should just, do a business degree. That's what everybody does if they don't know what they want to do. And I was like, okay, sounds good.
So you said alcohol kicked in as a result of these stage frights. So did you start drinking in high school, or was it even earlier than that?
Yeah, I think my first drink was about 14 years old.
Okay. So practically almost freshman, sophomore year. So right into it.
Yep.
Okay. And realistically, did you feel like it helped at all, or just created more of a problem?
Alcohol absolutely was the solution to my problem. Very quickly, I became a different version of myself. It didn't help on stage because I wasn't drinking before I went on stage or anything like that. I'm sure if I had, I would have been, a lot more confident on stage. But in my everyday life, that anxiety was gone. I became the life of the party. I didn't get that anxiety anymore. And I was thinking about that this morning, actually, how different I am today sober as when I was drinking. I thought I was I thought I was an extrovert. I thought I had that party girl personality. And then I get sober and I'm like, oh no, I'm like very much so introverted. And, I don't enjoy doing things like this. Like, I don't want to be the center of attention at all. I just have to be at this point because of my company. And, but that's okay. I'm doing whatever I have to do. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a very similar story to our co-chair, Jason Waller. Him in high school, yeah, he was the center of attention, but he didn't enjoy it.
Right.
And he turned to drinking to kind of put that mask on so he could get through it. And what he realized, later on, obviously after getting sober and working his program, he realized that the alcohol was just a means of survival at that point.
Right. Absolutely.
And it did him no good. Got him into more trouble. And, he makes the joke that he's allergic to alcohol. He breaks out in handcuffs, which I've seen firsthand. Yeah. It's definitely true. So with that being said, it sounds like your story is definitely unique, but there are a lot of similarities to a lot of people that turn to alcohol to get over not just stage fright in, say, a play or Broadway or on a camera or anything, but just stage fright of life.
Yeah, anxiety in general. I remember if I was late to class, I would literally, speed drive all the way there, get to the door, and then I would be like, oh my God, everyone's going to look at me the second I walk in. I can't. And I would just walk back. And it was just too much for me. I could not handle life sober. I had way too much anxiety.
So let me ask you this. So you took your first drink at what age?
I believe it was around 14.
Okay. And then do you think that you drank alcoholically from the get?
Oh, absolutely. I was a blackout drinker from day one.
Okay. I can relate to all of that. Yeah. and then when did you start seeing the problems? Like when did you start becoming aware that you had a problem?
That's a really good question. I think, I watched a podcast with Steve-O in it, and he said, I didn't know I was an alcoholic until I got sober or something like that. And that's exactly how I was. I knew that I didn't drink like other people. Addiction runs in my family. I I constantly thought that I wasn't an addict because I never touched drugs. That was like my one thing. And I think I knew had I gone that extra step, I would have never returned. So it was something that I was like very fearful of because I knew how much I loved alcohol. And I had almost died so many times. I put myself in so many situations where I was blacked out. I went into the ocean thinking I was funny, and then I would end up, miles down the beach, and I hit rocks, and there was this party going on, and, all of these people are looking at me like, are you okay? And I just thought it was hilarious. Like, wow, I could have just died and it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. I was constantly drinking to numb all of the shame or, the guilt that I felt while I was drinking. So I think I didn't really realize it was an issue until I actually got sober, and I wanted to run away and be out of my skin and just jump back into alcohol. That's when I realized, oh, I had a really serious issue. The first time I went into treatment, I was 22.
And how did you get there? How did you end up in treatment? Did they do an intervention on you?
No, I was blacked out in front of my dad for the very first time because once I hit 18, I moved away and I came home for my sister's birthday, and I was, telling everybody I was going to kill myself. I ran away. And then I came back to my sister's house, and my dad came down the stairs when I woke up the next morning, and he had his phone out, and he was like, do you know what a blackout is? And I was like, no, what is that? I've never heard of that. And, of course, I was manipulating him, lying through my teeth. I'd blacked out probably 7,000 times before. This time was just, in front of someone who really loved me and cared about me. And so he was telling me all about blacking out, and, once it happens once, it's going to keep happening. And I was like, oh no, just trying to appease him. And he was like, okay, well, I think you should go to this program. And I was like, okay, whatever to get him off my back. And so I went, and I started sharing a little bit about myself at this program, and one of my counselors said, I think you should really consider being an alcoholic. And I immediately run to the kitchen, pick up my phone, call my dad, and I'm like, Dad, they're telling me I'm an alcoholic. I need to leave. This is not for me. And, that was the first little sliver of someone telling me I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't believe it yet. I stayed sober, dry, I guess I would say, for probably 2 months to prove them wrong, because I knew deep down I was not an alcoholic. And I stayed sober, and, I was like, okay, well, now I get to go have fun and get really, really blacked out drunk. And that's how I celebrated the success of staying sober. And the next 2 years, things got immensely worse. I would end up in drunk tanks. I would lose my purse and, with my keys and everything. And I would wake up, come to at my door, with my neighbors calling the cops on me. And, it was a mess. And then, after that first program, I knew someone had already put that in my head that I was an alcoholic. And so I started to try to change things. I changed where I lived every other year. I changed what alcohol I would drink. I changed, I would try to drink water beforehand. It didn't matter. Anything I did, it didn't matter. I just kept drinking alcoholically. And, some terrible things happened while I was drinking. And that was the moment where I wanted help, because I felt like I was going to either kill myself or just kind of succumb to life and not know what I wanted to do anymore. And so I asked for help, and I went into treatment at 24 years old, and I have not had a drink ever since.
So
Wow.
It sounds like the first time you went into treatment, it was more so for your dad because you had blacked out in front of him.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so then after that and leading up to the second stint in treatment, It sounds like there was a moment of clarity or something that clicked. Was that the fact that you figured if you kept going down this road, it would lead to you potentially dying and or hurting yourself or loved ones? Or was there something that happened to where you said, all right, enough's enough. I can't do this.
I had a very traumatic thing happen to me 3 months before I went into treatment. And then when I was in treatment, I just wanted to not feel the way I was feeling. It still wasn't the same. It wasn't like, oh, I'm done drinking alcohol. I went into treatment and I felt like I just wanted to be okay with myself. When I share my story with other alcoholics, I called the treatment center and they said, don't book a round trip. You don't know how long you're going to be here for. And I said, I'm just going for mental health. I do not have an alcohol problem. I will be booking a round trip. I will only be there for 30 days. I'm not missing, it was right before Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I had all of these stipulations for how long I was going to be in treatment for. And I thought I knew what was best for myself. And, I got there and I was like, oh, wow, I'm way more messed up than I thought I was. And I ended up staying for 89 days. And then I went into a sober living. And I think within the first 2 weeks of me being in a sober living, 3 people from my treatment center had died. And so that's the answer to your question, is that was the spark that was like, oh, I actually can die from this. Before I got sober, I didn't know anybody who had died from this disease, and so, firsthand seeing them sober, working, a program and really wanting it, and then literally dying 2 weeks later, it was like, oh, wow, yeah, I need to actually get myself into a program and do what people tell me to do, because I don't know how to listen to, I can't listen to myself, And
then after going through that, were you able to recover your relationship with your father? Because it seemed like he was very concerned after just seeing you black out once. Let alone, you're saying, that sounded way more frequently than once. But for him to take those actions just off of that one incident, I'm sure he had to have been completely beside himself, concerned about your safety.
Yeah, absolutely. We always had a really good relationship. Even when I was drinking, I was I was so good at hiding it. And, and I think that's also what alcohol did for me is I became this very, very good liar, very good manipulator where, whatever my dad needed to hear, I was going to tell him. And, so yeah, when I finally got sober and I admitted everything, he was kind of in shock, He didn't realize that it was as big of an issue as it was.
Did you get help for the traumatic event that happened 3 months before you got sober?
Yes. That was the reason why I went to the place I went to. It was actually a trauma-based treatment center.
Good.
Yeah. That I think, I believe that your higher power gives you exactly what you can handle. And I unfortunately had to go through that. And I knew that he knew that I could handle that and that I would have the power to actually ask for help. And, not only just ask for help, but it was the reason why I could actually get sober and now help so many more people.
Yeah, and on that, you mentioned that you switched over to a business degree.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming you probably completed that, right?
Yeah.
And then that was one of the next steps to get you to where you're at today.
Yes.
So after that second stint in treatment, was that it? And you've been sober ever since?
It sure was.
And then you came to found Taste Recovery.
Yeah. So I had my own personal experiences in sober living, which kind of led me to my business today. When I got out of treatment, I went to treatment in Florida because they said change everything. So I went to treatment in Florida and I went to a sober living in St. Petersburg. And it was, from the outside looking in, it was this beautiful place. The city kind of reminded me of San Francisco, and I just felt like it was a great place to have a new start. And it was not at all what it looked like. Our house manager was using, and the owner lived in a different state. He was a man owning a women's sober living. And, I had kind of gotten other women from my treatment center to come there. And then, I felt very responsible that a lot of them had ended up relapsing because of the lack of structure in the house. And after that house, I ended up moving back home to California. I moved into a different sober living. I stayed there for, I think, 9, maybe 10 months until I had about 13 months of sobriety. And, that house was the complete opposite. The owner was a woman. She, held meetings at our house, and she cared deeply about our recovery. She cared about who our house manager was. And all of the women in that house, for the most part, stayed sober. They're still my friends today. Just a completely different experience. And that's kind of where I saw, this huge need in the industry where people are not finding the proper help that they need, and I think, treatment is phenomenal, but most people need aftercare after treatment. Most people need, a year of actual aftercare. And so if they don't know where to go, most of the time people just end up going back to their house. They end up going back into a very dysfunctional family. They end up going back into this terrible situation that they probably were using, because of, and they end up relapsing pretty much right away. And so Taste Recovery is, it kind of is like an Airbnb meets Yelp for sober living houses. We give as much information on the house as possible. So there's house rules, house regulations, the requirements of the house, the house details, pictures, and then past or current clients can leave reviews on the house. So a lot of people ask us if we certify the house. Absolutely not. I wanted to create a peer-reviewed resource because from my experience, house owners are really good at manipulating the system. We are usually addicts and alcoholics running these houses. And so if you're not working a program, you're probably, doing things a little shady, unfortunately. And the sober living industry has that name now because of all of these bad actors. And so, it's a resource where we're promoting as much transparency as we possibly can. And I encourage anybody out there listening, if you've lived in a sober living, to go leave a review on it, because if it is a good house, people need to know that it's a good house. If it's a bad house, people need to know that it's a bad house. And I say this all the time, house managers are the keystone of a sober living. The sober living is only as good as the house manager. And so therefore, house managers can change quite often. And so really the reviews are to keep the house accountable, and people can actually see what's really going on in real time at these houses, which is so necessary. It needs the most transparency in the industry is the sober living houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I love the fact that you guys are doing peer review because it kind of like going back to the college days, right? Rate my professor.
Yeah.
Look under professors and start dropping all the people that you don't want to be in their class, But, a good buddy of mine, his dad always used to say, cream rises to the top. You just got to let it sit, right? And with that being said, to your point, there are a lot of bad players just because of the nature of the industry. With that being said, they've tarnished the good players that do good work, and some of them have had to close because of lack of business, just because of the negative stigma of the treatment industry. The fact is, Jason will be at my back for saying this, is that treatment does work. Recovery is possible.
Right.
You just got to, one, go to a right facility, a good fit, aftercare is hugely important, especially after 30, 60, 90 days of treatment. You're still fresh.
Right.
You can't go back home where the environment was hostile or rough or making you anxious or whatever. And, you have all these stressors. But to have that peer review, I think that's a great tool. That's something that we actually encourage, not just for sober living, but for even facility visits. If you're going to go check out an inpatient facility, go talk to people, go talk to some of the clients there. To Jason's point, as soon as you sign in, you can talk to anybody on the premises. So go talk to a client, see what their experience is. And chances are, most of the clients, they might see the clinicians watching over them or whatever, but they'll shoot you straight. It's either going to be like, I love it here, or, you can kind of tell the energy. But I love the transparency. I know, Hilary, that you're all about transparency. So to have that, I'm sure, we definitely want to take a look at it and utilize it as a resource if anybody reaches out to us for sober living, because we do get those emails from time to time.
Absolutely. And I
Where
think
is it located?
It's a website and an app. We have an iOS app and an Android app. You just type in Taste Recovery, and then tasterecovery.com is our website.
Okay, but is it one house or you have more than one house?
Oh, we don't own any of the houses. We are just a listing site. So we have 306 sober livings in 33 states, I think.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah.
My brain.
So essentially the sober living, if you're a sober living owner, you can create a profile and then as a sober living owner, and then you literally just upload your house directly from your phone or your website.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. About you personally, I love hearing about your business, but I also want to know, how do you maintain your recovery today? Like, what are the tools that you use?
I do a lot of things to maintain my recovery. First and foremost is being of service. I'm in a group chat with a lot of other sober women. And if someone reaches out and says, hey, I'm not doing so hot, I pick up the phone and I call them and I ask them how they're doing regardless of how I'm feeling in that moment. I work a program. I stay honest. I hold myself accountable. When I harm somebody, I make amends to them. And, I help other women today work a program. I share my experience, strength, and hope with them. I also connect with sober people probably 3 to 4 times a week.
So it sounds like being connected to other women especially, but being connected to other people in recovery and giving back and being that kind of like helpline or support line really helps you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure does. That's kind of the basis of my program is I have to give what I have received freely away. Otherwise, I'm just going to be miserable and dry.
Okay, so of all these tools that you have in your toolbox, so to speak, if you had to pick one thing to create an action for the day, something our listeners can, turn off their phone and go do right now and see an improvement in some aspect of their life, what would you recommend?
Prayer and meditation.
I like that.
Yeah. Before this meeting, I literally sat in my car and I prayed and I meditated for 5 to 10 minutes. And when I get right with God, I get right with myself, and everything else is going to be taken care of as long as I just let it go. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. I don't think we've had
that.
prayer and meditation. That's a new one. That's a fresh one. So if you guys are keeping track and taking notes, prayer and meditation. That's a new one. But no, that's awesome. So where can more people find more information about you and Taste Recovery?
I'm on LinkedIn. Taste Recovery has a Facebook page, an Instagram account, a TikTok. And then just our website. We have a contact us page.
Awesome. Well, we'll have the URL in the podcast notes at the bottom. And thank you for coming on. Hilary, do you have any other questions or anything you'd like to know about our wonderful guest?
No, it's just great. Thank you so much for sharing some of the stuff with us. And we're grateful to have you, Miss Breezy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming around. Hopefully we'll have Jason back next week. But as we are on baby watch, I might be back. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, Hilary.
Caca.
We'll be in touch.